The oldest histories of the known world can't tell you the origin of Asshai. If you travel east from Westeros and eastern still, you will find one of the biggest mysteries in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe, Asshai by the Shadow. Asshai has been mentioned in the first books of A Song of Ice and Fire from the very beginning, and I think Asshai holds secrets that could answer a lot of the questions spawned from its existence. In this video, we will explore the depths of the shadow and all of its ancient history, because there are some things that will never be lost in the morrows of time. Easternmost and southernmost of the great cities of the known world, the ancient port of Asshai stands at the edge of the world. Even the Asshai do not claim to know who built their city. They will say only that a city has stood here since the world began and will stand here until it ends. Some will tell you it already saw the world end before, and the city was the last ember in the ashes. The stories from Asshai are the horrors that nightmares are made of, but the importance of Asshai is highlighted all throughout the main A Song of Ice and Fire novels. Asshai is first introduced to us by Magister Illyrio. He says the dragon eggs that he gave Daenerys are from the shadowlands beyond Asshai. And when Brandon Stark had his Coma dream, he sees the fabled lands of the Jade Sea, Asshai by the Shadow, where dragons stir beneath the sunrise. When it comes to Asshai, you're going to hear a lot about dragons and dragons and dragons. Magic had died in the West when the doom fell on Valyria and the lands of Long Summer, and neither spell-forged steel nor Stormsinger nor dragons could hold it back. But Dany had always heard that the East was different. It was said that manticores prowled the islands of the Jade Sea, that basilisks infested the jungles of Yi, that spellsingers, warlocks, and aeromancers practiced their arts openly in Asshai, while Shadowbinders and blood mages worked terrible sorceries in the black of night. Why shouldn't there be dragons too? Everyone says that the dragons came from Valyria, but the rumor is heard the first dragons had come from the east, from the Shadowlands, beyond Asshai, and the island of the Jade Sea. Perhaps some were still living there in realms strange and wild. Dragons are the least of what we might find in Asshai. Asshai is a large city. It's sprawling out for leagues and leagues on both banks of the Black River known as Ash. The river is said to glow green in the night. Behind its enormous land walls is ground enough for Volantis, Qarth, and King's Landing to stand side by side and still have room for Old Town. That's a huge city, especially when you consider that King's Landing alone allegedly houses nearly 1 million souls. Magical practitioners from all over come to Asshai because in the Shadowlands you can openly practice any kind of magic that you like. Worship whatever gods you like. You're literally free. The Dark City by the Shadow is a city steeped in sorcery. Warlocks, wizards, alchemists, moonsingers, red priests, black alchemists, necromancers, aeromancers, pyromancers, blood mages, torturers, inquisitors, poisoners, godswives, nightwalkers, shape changers, worshippers of the black goat and the pale child and the lion of the night, which is wild because all three of those religions are gods of death and require blood sacrifice. Nothing is forbidden here. They all find welcome in Asshai by the Shadow. Here, they are free to practice their spells without restraint or censure, conduct their obeisant rites, and fornicate with demons if that is their desire. They could even practice the darkest of arts, like those practiced in the Basilisk Isles. The Dragon Lords of Old Valyria used to send their worst criminals to the Isle of Tears, and there, in the flesh pits, blood sorcery of the darkest sort was practiced, as beasts were mated to slave women to bring forth twisted half-human children. This is not the first time we've heard of twisted half-human children. We've heard the same of the White Walkers. The wildlings were cruel men, she said. Slavers and slayers and thieves. They consorted with giants and ghouls, stole girl children in the dead of the night, and drank blood from polished horns. And their women lay with others in the long night to sire terrible half-human children. Few places in the known world are as remote as Asshai, and few are as foreboding, unless you look north of the wall. And I'm talking about the real north, past the Skirling Pass, past the Frost Fangs, and past the Valley of the Thens, into the lands of always winter, where the others are rumored to have come from during the long night. It's a frozen wasteland, locked in a ceaseless winter, and that's the closest thing we have to Asshai. That's closer to Asshai than even Valyria. When it comes to Asshai, travelers tell us that the city is built entirely of black stone. Halls, hovels, temples, palaces, streets, walls, bazaars, all. Some say as well that the stone of Asshai has a greasy, unpleasant feel to it, that it seems to drink the light, dimming tapers and torches and hearth fires alike. The nights are very black in Asshai, and even the brightest days of summer are somehow gray and gloomy. However, Ashai's port is famous, and many of the sailors have sailed into the port of Asshai. None more famous than the sea snake, Corlys Velaryon, and traveling to Asshai cost him way more than he bargained for. He lost his lover and half of his crew. Asshai, the dark and bleak port city at the edge of the world. The greasy blackstone of Asshai have caused many maesters and theorists to ponder its meaning for years. The blackstone seems to be a hint by George R.R. Martin that Asshai is linked to the Bloodstone Emperor, the Gemstone Emperors, and the Great Empire of the Dawn. The Gemstone Emperors are said to come from the gods. The Lion of Night and the Maiden Maid of Light had a son, the god on earth. For 10,000 years, the great empire of the dawn flourished in peace and plenty under the god on earth, until at last he ascended to the stars to join his forebears. Dominion over mankind then passed to his eldest son, who was known as the Pearl Emperor and ruled for 1,000 years. The Jade Emperor and the Tourmaline Emperor, the Onyx Emperor, the Topaz Emperor, and the Opal Emperor followed in turn, each reigning for centuries, yet every reign was shorter and more troubled than the one preceding it. For wild men and baleful beasts pressed at the borders of the great empire. Lesser kings grew prideful and rebellious, and the common people gave themselves over to envy, lust, murder, incest, gluttony, and sloth, all the 7 deadly sins. When the daughter of the Opal Emperor succeeded him as the Amethyst Empress, her envious younger brother cast her down and slew her, proclaiming himself the Bloodstone Emperor and beginning a reign of terror. He practiced dark arts, torture, necromancy, enslaved his people, took a tiger woman for his bride, feasted on human flesh, and cast down the true gods to worship a black stone that had fallen from the sky. Many scholars count the Bloodstone Emperor as the first high priest of the sinister Church of Starry Wisdom, which persists to this day in many port cities throughout the known world. This Gemstone Emperor bit has led many theorists to link Cthulhu mythos by Lovecraft to Asshai. It has also caused theorists to link Asshai and the Great Empire to Daenerys Targaryen. Could the House of the Dragon be connected to the Gemstone Emperors of Asshai? Is Asshai part of the Empire of the Dawn? Possibly. I think it's definitely the belief of many that the dragons came from Asshai. Not just the dragons, but the Targaryens as well. In Asshai, the tales are many and confused, but certain texts, all impossibly ancient, claim that dragons first came from the shadow, a place where all of our learning fails us. These Asshai histories say that a people so ancient they had no name first tamed dragons in the shadow and brought them to Valyria, teaching Valyrians their arts before departing from the annals. Throughout the main series, Daenerys is visited by Quaithe. Quaithe is said to be from the shadow. She is a Shadowbinder from Asshai. She seems to communicate with Daenerys through fabled glass candles. Glass candles are made of obsidian. The glass candles are said to be Valyrian sorcery. But the more we venture into Asshai, Valyrian sorcery seems to all come from Asshai. All Valyrian sorcery was rooted in blood and fire. The sorcerers of the Freehold could see across mountains, seas, and deserts with one of these candles. They could enter a man's dreams and give him visions, and speak to one another half a world apart, seated before their candles. This is similar to what the Children of the Forest did with the Weirwoods. So before Daenerys brings forth Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, glass candles have not burned in hundreds of years, but they're burning now. With the dragons comes the return of magic, and there is no place more magical than Asshai. So, have there been dragons in Asshai all along? Quaithe tells Daenerys that she must pass beneath the shadow. I've always thought that this means Drogon. She must pass beneath his shadow, or the shadow of the Mother of the Mountains. But Quaithe does seem to be trying to warn Daenerys and lure Daenerys to Asshai. Or at least she says in Asshai, Daenerys will find the truth. To go north, you must journey south. To reach west, you must go east. To go forward, you must go back. And to touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. Asshai? Dany thought. She would have me go to Asshai? Will the Asshai give me an army? She demanded. Will there be gold for me in Asshai? Will there be ships? What is there in Asshai that I will not find in Qarth? Truth, said the woman in the mask. And bowing, she faded back into the crowd. Quaithe wears a mask of starlight, Dany says, but she always speaks to her in riddles and rhymes, but we do know, based off of these riddles, that Quaithe does know more than she should know. The other Shadowbinder, that is also from Asshai, is Melisandre. Melisandre of Asshai is a Shadowbinder. She's a powerful witch that sees visions in the fire and has the ability to glamour herself, and she has the ability to glamour others like she does for Mance Rayder in the books, not in the show. She has strange powers like the ones that allowed her to kill Maester Cressen. Melisandre is motivated by the Azor Ahai prophecy, which I think Quaithe seems to be motivated by as well. And then there's the Azor Ahai prophecy. That actually originates in Asshai. If Azor Ahai originates in Asshai, and if dragons originate in Asshai, then Lightbringer might very well be a dragon. If Daenerys is Azor Ahai, then Lightbringer is her dragons. But Melisandre is said to be a Shadowbinder, right? She's a Shadowbinder from Asshai. And it's also established that since Melisandre has been at the wall, she is more powerful. She was stronger at the wall, stronger even than in Asshai. Her every word and gesture was more potent, and she could do things that she had never done before. Such shadows as I bring forth here will be terrible, and no creature of the dark will stand before them. With such sorceries at her command, she could soon have no more need of the feeble tricks of alchemists and pyromancers. I wonder what Asshai in the north, specifically the wall, have in common. Why is she so strong there? Why is it almost like Asshai? Is it close to Asshai? But let's go back to dragons originating in Asshai. It does make sense that dragons originate in Asshai because when Aegon the Unlikely was going wild with dragons and dreams of dragons and getting obsessed with hatching eggs, so obsessed that he killed himself and burned his son and Jenny of Old Stones with him when Summerhall went up in a blaze, one of the journeys he commissioned in search of dragon lore was to Asshai, to try to uncover the ancient magic of waking dragons. I almost wonder not who made dragons, but how they were made. Like, did they get them right the first time? Were there some like Frankensteinish creatures that didn't quite make the cut? And are they still lurking through the dark corners of Asshai? Some of what Daenerys sees in Vaes Dothrak is creepy, to say the least. When the Dothraki, when they conquer and plunder these cities, they drag their deities and heroes of those cities and they bring them back to the Mother of the Mountains and they put them on display. And Daenerys sees them, and this is what she sees. Stone kings look down on her from their thrones, their faces chipped and stained, even their names lost in the mist of time. Young maidens danced on marble plinths, draped only in flowers, or poured air from shattered jars. Monsters stood in the grass beside the road, black iron dragons with jewels for eyes, roaring griffins, manticores with their barbed tails poised to strike, and other beasts she could not name. Some of the statues were so lovely they took her breath away, others so misshapen and terrible that Dany could scarcely bear to look at them. Those, Ser Jorah said, had likely come from the Shadowlands beyond Asshai. What statue could be so terrible, so beastly, so monstrous that she cannot name the beast, and it's scary to think that something so horrifying could be worshipped in Asshai, and could be labeled as a forgotten deity from Asshai. Asshai is, by all we know, a great port, but if you look at it, it's a dead city. The stone drinks the light. Animals and children can't live there. The people that Daenerys sees from Asshai are described as sad and dark and solemn-faced. The grass in Asshai is even sad. The water is green and the grass is white. Everything is inside out. Down in the Shadowlands beyond Asshai, they say there are oceans of ghost grass, taller than a man on horseback, with stalks as pale as milk glass. It murders all other grass and glows in the dark with the spirits of the damned. The Dothraki claim that someday ghost grass will cover the entire world, and then all life will end. I can't help but think that some version of the White Walkers existed in Asshai at one time. Tall, pale as milk glass, glows in the dark with the spirits of the damned. If ghost grass is not a metaphor for White Walkers, I'm not sure what is. But it is possible that they existed, or something like them existed in Asshai. Asshai is bleak and mysterious, but it's a place of great learning. We know that Mirri Maz Duur went in a caravan to Asshai to learn from their mages, and many people came to the ports from distant lands, and she learned from them too. It's somewhat of a place of trading knowledge, but Mirri makes it seem like the price is not cheap. I learned the way in Asshai and paid dear for the lesson. My teacher was a blood mage from the Shadowlands. A blood mage is a mage or a magician or a witch that practices in blood magic. Magic is so prevalent in Asshai. Shadowbinders, aeromancers, blood mages, pyromancers, potions, monstrosities. What is the cost of utilizing so much magic? Well, if you look at the city itself, it seems to be drained of all life and is a shadow of what it used to be, which makes sense as to why they would call it the Shadowlands. Life can't even sustain itself in Asshai, at least natural life. An archmaester from the Citadel pointed out that no one rides horses in Asshai. No horses, no elephants, no mules, no donkeys, no horses, no dogs. If animals are brought there, they die. Some people blame it on the river Ash, like it's polluted waters, but animals will die even without drinking the water. Some maesters say it's because animals are more sensitive to the foulness exuded by such waters. But Septim Barth has other ideas. Higher mystery type of ideas. I mean, we know dogs are more sensitive to smells and sounds, and when storms are brewing, animals are the first to know. It's because animals are more in touch with nature. And in Asshai, nature does not exist. Nature can't exist. So neither can animals or children. There are no children in Asshai. Nothing grows in Asshai. No food. If it weren't for the ships coming into the port to deliver goods, the Asshai would starve. Sailors risk it all to go to Asshai because what they lack for in food, they make up for in gold and gemstones. But even the gold and their gemstones seems to be tainted. And if they don't come for the gold and the gemstones, they come for things they dare not speak. The blackest of black magic. Things that can't be found anywhere else in the world other than Asshai. But while Asshai is huge, enormous in size, there are very few people. Like, you don't see people outside at gatherings, women going to tea to gossip to each other about their day. You don't see armies guarding and lining the streets, people rushing to work, people hanging in bars, shooting dice in alleys. You see a scarce person here and there rushing to their destination, veiled or in masks to hide their faces. They're usually alone, or they're like riding in like palanquins of ebony and iron, hiding behind dark curtains and carried through the black oily streets on the backs of slaves. But beyond the main city or port, if you follow the river Ash up to the mountains, you will reach the heart of darkness. In the caves that pockmark the cliffs, demons, dragons, and worse make their lairs. The farther from the city one goes, the more hideous these creatures become. Till at last you're before the doors of the Stygai, the corpse city at the shadow's heart, where even the Shadowbinders fear to tread. The language of this is actually insanely close to the language of some of the things we hear about the North. Most specifically, in Bran's Coma dream, he lifted his eyes and saw clear across the narrow sea, to the free cities and the green Dothraki sea and beyond, to vast Dothrak under its mountains, to the fabled lands of the Jade Sea, to Asshai by the shadow, where dragons stirred beneath the sunrise. Finally, he looked north. He saw the wall shining like a blue crystal, and his bastard brother Jon sleeping alone in a cold bed, his skin growing pale and hard as memory of all warmth fled from him. And he looked past the wall, past endless forests cloaked in snow, past the frozen shore and the great blue-white rivers of ice, and the dead plains where nothing lived or grew. Sounds like Asshai. North and north and north he looked, to the curtain of light at the end of the world, and then beyond that curtain he looked deep into the heart of winter. And then he cried out, afraid. He saw Asshai, but he also saw the heart of winter. And we just learned about the corpse city in the shadow's heart. And we know the heart of winter has to do with corpses and shadows. Stannis' fool, the patchy-faced boy, is always talking about the White Walkers as shadows. The shadows come to dance, my lord, I know, I know, I know. And brings feels of the long night. It really makes me wonder if Asshai and the North are connected through these hearts. And if the mountains of Asshai actually connect land-wise and metaphorically to the lands of always winter. Asshai is reminiscent of some post-apocalyptic event, almost like some nuclear explosion fallout type of thing, an extinction level event, which is kind of what the White Walkers are. If unchecked, the White Walkers would extinguish the entire planet. So Corpse City, and with Asshai being essentially dead and on life support from sailors and traders from other lands, is Asshai what happens when the long night falls on a city? Have the Asshai people used up so much of the magic that it's literally drained the city of life? And if some long night type of event happened, does that explain why the city is dead? Does that explain why the legend of Azor Ahai comes out of Asshai? But then there's like, why do people still live there? Is the magic potent there? According to Melisandre, her powers are more potent at the wall, even more than they were in Asshai. When it comes to the people of Asshai, clearly all of them didn't stay. That's why the streets are so deserted. If there was some cataclysm, lots of them probably died. But if we look at all of the evidence we have, it seems something else happened. We see there are hardly any people there. Some likely died, but some left, and they left with the knowledge of dragons and glass candles and blood magic and fire magic. And what's more likely is those people that left formed Valyria, and they were ancestors of the original gemstone emperors. And if you think about it, Valyria suffered a similar fate. We don't know if people still live in Valyria, but people could still live there. We know that Euron is said that he went there. And then there's Rhaenyra Targaryen. She went there on the back of Balerion, and when she came back, the state of her sounds like she went to the heart of winter, or the heart of the shadow. The corpse city of Stygai in Asshai. Rhaenyra came back from Valyria in shambles. She was placed in a cold bath, and when she was, the things, mother have mercy, I don't know how to speak of them. They were worms with faces, snakes with hands, twisting, slimy, unspeakable things that sound like they come from Asshai. But since all of this history is impossibly ancient, we could say Asshai at one point was like Valyria, abandoned and cursed, or at least believed to be that way, until people started to go back. We haven't seen the ruins of Valyria in the books. We don't know what they look like. Could they actually look like Asshai? And could Valyria actually rise again? We have Jaerion Lannister, who went on his fool's quest 13 years ago to recover Bright Roar, the Lannister Valyrian steel sword. Tyrion recalls this when he sails past Valyria. He's not close enough to see Valyria, but what he does see harks back to Asshai by the shadow. Only the brightest stars were visible all to the west. A dull red glow lit the sky to the northeast, the color of a blood bruise. Tyrion had never seen a bigger moon, monstrous, swollen. It looked as if it had swallowed the sun and woke with a fever. Its twin floating on the sea beyond the ship, shimmered red with every wave. "What hour is this?" he asked Moqorro. "That cannot be the sunrise unless the east has moved. Why is the sky red?" "The sky is always red above Valyria, Hugor Hill." Tyrion assumes it's the fire of the 14 flames reflecting off the clouds, but the sky is red and glowing in the night, just like the river in Asshai glows green and their grass glows white. So not only do I think Asshai and Valyria are connected, I think Asshai is closely connected to the White Walkers more than we've thought before. I mean, maybe, like, Asshai by the Shadow is not just a place of dark magic, but it's deeply tied to the larger narrative of A Song of Ice and Fire, especially the return of dragons and the mysterious origins of magic. And there's also the connection between Asshai and dragons, as well as Asshai and the Shadowbinders and blood magic. I mean, like, it could hold the key to understanding the prophecy surrounding Daenerys Targaryen, the return of magic, and the threat of the Long Night. The mysterious nature of Asshai, coupled with its potential link to the downfall of Valyria and the rise of dragons, positions it as a crucial, not yet fully understood element in A Song of Ice and Fire and of the conflict between light and dark. While the people of Asshai might seem like they are living in a dead city, it is clear that they possess knowledge that could change the course of history. Knowledge tied to the oldest, most potent magic in the world. In the end, Asshai is a place where the past meets the present, and its secrets might be the key to understanding the true nature of magic, dragons, and the impending doom that threatens the world. George, please give us Winds of Winter, please! But what do you think? As always, thanks for watching. Okay, my sweet summer children, have a good day.